Members of Council, the first order of business is the adoption of the Council minutes of September 22nd, 2008. Can I have a motion, please? Moved by Councillor Fisher, seconded by Councillor Diodati. Any questions or comments with respect to the motion or the minutes? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. This time I'm going to ask for any disclosures of a pecuniary interest by any members of Council. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, I have a conflict with respect to 2000-021 planning report and PD 2008-87, a part lot control on Pinestone Road.
So noted. Yes, Councillor Ioannoni.
Check number 322607 made out to myself.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Wing.
I have four. From Corporate Services tonight, Report F 2008-41, Lundy's Lane Battlefield Legacy Project. From Community Services, MW 2008-61, Building Canada Fund, and the related resolution appearing on tonight's council agenda, and also the deputation on the fundraiser for that project. My spouse is employed by the Board of Museums.
Thank you. So noted. Are there any others? Thank you. Move on to deputations and presentations. This evening we have the Bicentennial Task Force with us, and Gord West of the Festival and Events Subcommittee of the Bicentennial Task Force is going to advise Council on an upcoming event which the proceeds will be directed to the Legacy Project. So welcome, Mr. West.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I have the poster here. You can see it, right? Not the largest of our posters, but it's here. Your Worship and members of Council, it is with pleasure that I appear before you this evening, especially after the wonderful support you showed to us today. Members of the committee that put together this event, Pat Mascarin, Susan Noakes, Paisley Janbury Poole, Philomena McCracken, Bob Bolabrick, Beth Engel, Wendy Canavan, and of course Kathy Powell. It has been 3 years since Mayor Ted Solsi's office initiated the task force to organize the celebrations that surround the once-in-a-lifetime anniversary in Niagara Falls, the bicentennial of the War of 1812. As you know, we offered to come before you on occasion to let you know how the plans for the bicentennial are proceeding, and that's why I'm here tonight. Today, I take this opportunity to announce to you that after the meetings and public consultations, our kickoff event leading to the bicentennial is just 6 weeks away. I invite you, your family, and your friends to join us on Saturday, November 15th, to the first annual Celebration 2012. It will be an evening of dinner, fun, and entertainment. It will take place at the Americana Conference Resort on historic Lundy's Lane, starting at 6 p.m. After a full-course dinner, the Tartan Terrors, shown here, will offer their own unique style of Celtic music featuring the best in comedy and dance. Hear the blistering piping of a two-time world champion piper, the driving tones of drums from around the world, watch Highland style and improvised dancing, accompanied by guitar playing as you have never. The theme for the celebration 2012 is, of course, red, white, and blue. You are invited to dress, in fact, encouraged to dress in these colors. If you prefer, you may dress in period costume or come as your favorite historic figure of the war. A silent auction of local art, photography, and other gifts will be held throughout the evening, offering our guests the opportunity to get an early start on Christmas shopping. All sales will benefit our community cause. The cost of the tickets for the celebration 2012 are $50 per person. Tickets may be purchased at the Lundy's Lane Historical Museum located at 5810 Ferry Street near the corner of Main. All proceeds will go towards the Lundy's Lane Battlefield Project, which continues to move forward at a rapid pace. It includes a major capital expansion of the Lundy's Lane Historical Museum, including a world-class visitors center, improves interpretive signage, walking trails on the battleground itself, and a pedestrian walkway over Lundy's Lane to connect the two halves of our National Historic Site. The Board of Museums fundraising efforts continue. The citizens of Niagara Falls have taken this historic project and are pitching in. You as a council have committed both funds and excellent support report. In fact, I can see at least 3 tables that can be filled from around this room in front of me. The tables are tables of 8, by the way. I expect then to see you all at the Americana on the evening of November 15th for an evening of fun, the first event leading up to the bicentennial of the War of 1812 and the commemoration of the most significant battle of the war. And thank you for the opportunity to come before you to offer you this update and this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of Mr. West? Should be an exciting evening, and we hope to be there in some kind of period costume, so we'll look forward to celebrating with everybody else.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your presentation this evening. The next item on the agenda, members of council, is Park and the City Committee, and it's a pleasure to welcome Mrs. Pat Mascarin of the Park and the City Committee to our council chambers this evening. I'd like to ask Pat to come forward, please. In a moment, Pat will be making a presentation to the Niagara Falls Horticultural Society for their efforts to design, create, and maintain the beautiful Armory Garden on Victoria Avenue in Niagara Falls. The Niagara Falls Horticultural Society brought forward their proposal to landscape the front grounds of the Niagara Falls Armory in 2006. And since then, the volunteer members of the Horticultural Society have done all the work to complete this project. The cost, the environmental and historic details were all taken in consideration by the Society when creating this project, and they have incorporated their innovative ideas into every aspect of their design. And poppies are a prominent feature in the garden, and to pay tribute to fallen soldiers at this historic landmark. As well, many of the plants were divided and placed in other positions after they had grown for a year to take advantage of all the possible cost savings measures available. So I would like to congratulate the Niagara Falls Horticultural Society for their thoughtful approach to this project and their consistent efforts to maintain this eye-catching garden. So Pat, if you'd be be kind enough to, I invite you to say a few words and present the Community Corner Award to the Niagara Falls Horticultural Society for their fantastic effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Selfie and members of council. My name is Pat Mascarin, and I'm a volunteer member of Niagara Falls, the Park and the City Committee. Have been since inception. And recently, I was chosen to chair the city's new Communities in Bloom Committee. In this capacity today, I am very pleased to announce that the City of Niagara Falls has officially entered the 2009 Communities in Bloom competition, which will be judged in the summer of next year. Communities in Bloom is a Canadian beautification program. Educates, provides information, and awards communities for achievement in individual and combined areas of floral display, landscape, turf ground cover, urban forestry, community involvement, heritage conservation, environmental awareness, and tidiness. The vision of the program is the fostering of civic pride, environmental responsibility, and beautification through community participation, and offers a challenge of friendly competition. Every year, municipalities with similar populations enter this competition and are evaluated on the efforts and achievements of their business community, local organizations, residents, and municipal government. The key to success in the Communities in Bloom competition is community involvement. I'm going to say it again. The key to success in the Communities in Bloom competition is community involvement. And I just would like to remind you that tomorrow night is the 2008 Summer Trillium Awards, and we've all been invited. Council has been invited. Just a reminder, and we'd just love to see you there to help support us. Which leads me to community involvement, which leads me to the task at hand. I kind of have to repeat what you said there because I've got the same speech here. Hang in there. It's not as long. Niagara Falls Horticulture Society has always been actively involved in our community and has contributed to the beautification of our city through the support of their members and volunteers. This year, Communities in Bloom has recognized one of the many achievements of this society. At the Communities in Bloom Provincial Conference held in Ravenhurst in September, I was one of 3 from Niagara Falls to accept this certificate honoring the Society's work with the Armory Garden. At this time, I would like to invite the representatives of the Niagara Falls Horticultural Society, especially David Tetro, who championed this project, to please come and receive this Communities in Bloom Community Corner certificate for the dramatic and beautiful transformation of the Armory Garden.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pat. I wanted to say how beautiful the Armory is looking. It's very lush, and the selection was just superb. So congratulations once again, David. You have that unique talent. So thank you for your contribution, along with the members of the committee who helped. Thank you so much. Great. Pardon? I know. Okay, Mr. Clerk, would you introduce the next item on the agenda, please?
A public meeting is now being convened to consider a proposed amendment to the city's official plan and zoning bylaw to permit a 7-story, 119-unit apartment building at the northwest corner of River Road and John Streets. Notice has been given on this on a number of occasions, but the most recent occasion was on Friday, September 12, 2008, and by posting a sign on the property in question. Anyone who wants notice of the passage of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment to participate in any site plan process, if applicable, or preserve their opportunity to appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board shall leave their name on the sign-in sheets outside the council chamber.
Thank you very much. And at this time, I'm going to ask the Director of Planning to explain the purpose and the reason for the proposed bylaw amendment. Mr. Hurlovich?
Thank you, Your Worship. The application in front of council tonight is for a 119-unit apartment building. The site is actually depicted on the screen in front of you. It's on the west side of River Road between John and Phillip Street. The site partially vacant and partially occupied by single detached dwellings. The lands are further depicted here. In total, there are 6 properties involved. In total, 1.23 acres of land. The lands to the west and north are used for residential purposes. To the east is the Niagara Gorge, and to the south are commercial properties, specifically Michael's Inn. The site plan before you tonight for consideration shows the location of the property. Depicted in green is actually the, by and large, the parking garage, which forms the podium of this particular building. The top area of the podium will serve as a landscape terrace as an amenity area for the residents. The other building, which is brown or orange, depending on which screen you're looking at, is actually is the apartment building itself. As I mentioned, the building provides for 119 units. It ranges in height from 7 stories at the John and River Road area. That is the bottom right corner of the screen, to about 4 stories at the top right of the screen, or top left of the screen, which is the River Lane and Phillip Street area. The lands also involve a parcel of land on the west side of River Lane, which is to be used as surface parking. The elevations of the building are depicted here. To at the top is the northerly elevation. This is anybody driving up Phillip Street. We have this view of a portion of the parking garage, and then 4 floors of apartment units above that. On the John Street side, the picture on the bottom of your screen, which shows the parking garage extending further out of the ground. There are actually a two-story lobby, which is depicted there with large windows. Again, you can see the four-story apartment building. The elevation of the building along River Road is the top elevation, so you can see it again. It's tallest at the John Street side, shortest at the Phillip Street, and from this perspective, you can also see that the top units have a loft area, so that their portions of the building actually extend 5 stories. The whole building is the maximum height of 7 stories at the southeast corner, down to 4 stories at the northwest corner. The bottom elevation is the view that people would have along River Lane. The proposal before Council tonight is to actually change the official plan designation from tourist commercial to residential and to introduce site-specific policies for density. The application also involves rezoning to change the zone from tourist commercial to residential. They requested a residential apartment 5E zone, out as an R5E. Council had previously considered another project on this land back in 2006. It was for a 29-story building with 250 units. That amendment is currently at the region. It's being held in abeyance at the request of the applicant. The city clerk already alluded to the fact that there were 2 previous public meetings scheduled for this, and both those meetings were deferred in favor of the meeting tonight. The department had an example of this application relative to a number of factors. We started, of course, with our provincial growth plan. There is a requirement that municipalities by 2015 achieve 40% of their new housing within the existing built boundaries. This is likely to occur through conversion and intensification in established areas such as this particular application before you tonight. The official plan, lands are currently designated tourist commercial, which permits a variety of tourist accommodations and attractions. The residential development, rather, is permitted where tourist commercial lands are in excess of demand. We believe that the removal of these tourist commercial lands will leave sufficient lands to meet the future needs of the city. The applicant is seeking a residential designation. We believe that this is an appropriate designation because the lands to the west and north are similarly designated as residential. The official plan has a maximum density of 125 units per hectare, or 50 units an acre. It also specifies that these can be can extend above 6 stories in height. They identify areas where these lands or this type of development could occur. They identify the central business district, but they also identify land close to other major commercial districts, close to parks, close to open space areas. The official plan also provides policies for council to consider increases in height and density through bonus zoning, and in return, council would receive various public benefits. This project has a density of 238 units a hectare, or 96 units an acre. This is significantly higher than that contained in the official plan, but well below the previous density of the 29-story project considered by council. We believe that the higher density can be considered for the fact that it's next to the central tourist district, and it's therefore strategically located to take advantage of employment opportunities, entertainment and restaurant services, and the project will provide a resident population to support commercial uses. We also found the higher density could be considered because it is on an arterial road. The river road is identified as such in our official plan. It's at the edge of the established neighborhood, next to the Niagara, which is an open space area, and it's in close proximity to Queen Victoria Park, all criteria that was identified in our official plan. As well, we believe that council consider additional height and density in return for provision of community facilities. This would be secured for the municipality through a Section 37 agreement under the Planning Act. Staff previously suggested a contribution in the range of $240,000 to $250,000. This is proportionally based on the 29-story approval that had previously been given. This was one of the reasons that it was deferred from the July meeting. Staff have done a further review. We've developed a formula similar to the formula that we used in the tourist commercial area, which is based on floor area times construction costs times a percentage factor. In this case, we've calculated there are actually 56 units above the density that might otherwise be achieved. The floor area construction cost times 1% would require a cash contribution of almost $42,000, and we are recommending this. We also looked at compatibility based on height, built form, and traffic. We found that the height of this building is actually a transition between the tourist commercial lands to the south, which allow up to 12 stories in height, and between the residential areas to the north and west, which provide up to 3 stories. This project is actually between those two heights. The developer submitted sun shadow drawings to illustrate the effect of shadows cast on adjacent lands. The drawings indicated that the yards and the residential properties immediately to the west would be affected during the early morning periods during the spring and fall. The proposed development is an innovative design, introduces an intensive form of urban development that's not occurred in Niagara Falls to date. So we had a look at the building design. It has a step-back form, which helps increase the setbacks about the podium. The podium is established to maintain a streetscape and to lessen the impact on the pedestrian realm. The applicant also submitted a traffic study, which indicates that the current road system can support the proposed development without any unacceptable impacts. And we also looked at underground services, which are adequate to service the development. The applicant must demonstrate that the sanitary system at the Bender Hill pumping station can accommodate this proposal. And looking at the zoning, the applicant has requested, as I said, a site-specific R5B zone. This would replace the existing tourist commercial zone which exists on the property. The R5B zone will form the basis of the zoning and will reflect the unique design. There are a number of site-specific provisions. Among those, we've already mentioned the density, but it would also allow a height of 78 feet for the building. That would be at its tallest point of 7 stories at River Road and John Street. As well, there are setback requirements along River Road. This would accommodate the podium to come up to the road allowance. Initially, staff had some concern about the proposed setbacks of the building on Phillip Street. They have now increased those so that the majority of the building is actually 6 meters back from the property line. This is similar to other setbacks for residential units currently existing on Phillip Street. Portions of the building would come as close as 4.5 feet. And again, we saw this as being compatible with the porches of houses that exist on Phillip Street. The original submission proposed the building be set back 1.5 meters or 5 feet to the parking garage. That would be the same. Staff had suggested that a higher setback be achieved above the podium. We met with the proponent trying to achieve that, and we were able to increase that setback to 5 to 6 meters, just depending. Again, you saw the elevations of the building. It is a building which has a fair amount of undulation across it to create some architectural interest. We also felt that the setback that's proposed is actually an improvement over the current bylaw, which, as I mentioned, is a tourist commercial zone, It would permit a 4-story motel to be constructed on the site, set back only 3 meters or 9.7 feet from River Lane. So we saw that as an improvement. The proposed building would also have a height of 14 meters at Phillip Street, 19 meters at John Street, with loft projections, which accounts for the height that I mentioned earlier. We also felt it would be essential to have a dense screen of columnar trees planted along the River Lane side of the building in the landscape strip, the 5-foot strip that we mentioned. Balconies are currently allowed to project by virtue of the bylaw 6.6 feet, or 5.9 feet rather, into the side yard or into the yard areas. They're proposing 6.6 feet for the balconies. The applicant is seeking an increase in lot coverage to 80% and the landscaped area of 10%, but we also have noted that the rooftop terrace of the parking garage will form additional amenity space. The parking lot, the surface parking lot I mentioned, will be zoned P to ensure that it is used for no purpose other than parking. Our staff recommendation or conclusion, therefore, is that the application to allow the 119-unit apartment building can be supported. The redesignation of residential in the official plan is in keeping with the surrounding residential lands. The site is in an area where the official plan provides for consideration of higher densities and where bonus provisions can be also used. The building ranges in height from 7 to 4 stories. The setback from Phillip Street and River Lane achieved a degree of compatibility with the adjacent development. The applicant will be required to enter into a Section 37 agreement, and the zoning bylaw will incorporate site-specific provisions to ensure the form of development that Council is seeing here tonight. Therefore, our recommendation is that the application to redesignate the lands as residential in the official plan with site-specific provisions subject to Section 37 and a change in the zoning bylaw to permit the 7-story apartment building on the subject land be approved by Council. Those are the highlights of this application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurlovich. And members of the public are advised that failure to make an oral or written submission at this public meeting will result in the Ontario Municipal Board dismissing any referral it receives. Failure to sign the sign-in sheets will result in staff rejecting an appeal as per Section 17, subsection 24 of the Planning Act. At this time, Council will hear from anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaw amendment. We ask that you state your name and address for the record and limit your comments, please, to 10 minutes. Please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Tom Richardson. I'm a partner in the law firm of Sullivan Manny. I appear on this evening on behalf of the group of concerned citizens who are strongly opposed to this application. We have provided to you a book of exhibits. There will be a couple on the PowerPoint presentation, but I still feel better with a hard copy.
Thank you, sir, and welcome.
Provided to you this evening. Contained in tab 1 of the exhibit book is a written submission. Persons on whose behalf I appear are listed at the outset of those written submissions, and many of the persons I represent are present here tonight to watch this council meeting. I would like to thank council for deferring this matter at the public meeting on September the 8th in order to permit me to attend this evening on behalf of the concerned residents. Thank you as well for permitting me to speak to you this evening. As you are aware, our clients opposed the application of ORE for a 29-story, 250-unit condominium that was ultimately abandoned by the applicant. Our clients acknowledge that the present developer has listened to at least some of the residents' concerns and reduced the proposal to 7.5-story, 119-unit apartment complex, which is before you this evening. Our clients have no objection to the change from tourist commercial to residential, but they still have concerns about the height and density of the development and its inevitable adverse effects on the surrounding residents. The current zoning, in place since 1981, permits the development of a maximum of 4 stories, While it is zoned tourist commercial, in 1981, this council specifically limited the height of that tourist commercial development to 4 stories. Our clients have no objection to low-rise residential development that is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and would not adversely impact existing residents. Our clients are requesting that this council this evening make further changes to reduce the impact of this development on the surrounding neighbors. We are requesting that you reduce the height to a maximum of 4 stories and that you impose as a minimum the setbacks which were originally proposed by staff in its report of July 21st, 2008. I now propose to address several of the headings found in the written submission. I intend to deviate from them. I'm going to do my best to be finished in 10 minutes, but I wish to highlight certain what we think are rather important matters. First is the setbacks. The July Planning Department report suggests that one of the ways to mitigate negative impacts on the surrounding residents would be to increase the setbacks along River Lane, Phillip Street, and John Street. The chart found at tab 2 and now found on the PowerPoint presentation as well sets out the existing requirements for the 4-story motel, the applicant's proposal in July, the staff recommendation in July, and the revised plan which has been presented to you this evening. You will note that notwithstanding the staff recommendation in July, for example, that the podium be set back 6 meters from Phillip Street, it is being set back, in fact, 2.09. That the podium be set back from River Lane 10 meters, it's being set back 1.5. That the podium be set back from John Street 3 meters to 14, it is in fact being set back 2.4 and 13.4. That is close to what was recommended. The apartments from Phillip Street are to be 6 meters. We understand they are to be 3.5 to 4.5 meters. And from River Lane, 10 meters, again, was the recommendation. What is proposed is 4.5 to 5. Now, I'd also like to address the height. Tab 2 of our booklet, tab 3 of our booklet, and the next PowerPoint, shows the elevations which were provided to you earlier this evening by Mr. Hurlovich. I'd like to take you to the bottom elevation, which is the westerly elevation. On the right-hand side of that elevation is John Street. So that is the view that you will see from River Lane and from the residents' homes on John Street, looking straight forward to a 7-story building with a 2-story podium. Tab 3 contains the latest detail, the detail from the latest site plan agreement. I will use this to demonstrate the proximity of the building to the nearest homes. We measure that the building will be only 28 feet from the neighboring house at 4399 John Street. That is the first house. I invite you to consider how wide this room is. That is how far away the area resident will be from a 7.5-story apartment building. We calculate that the podium will be 20 feet from the property at 4407 John Street, including the backyard amenity area. When we get to tab number 7, there is a cross-section with a human figure in the lower left corner to give a sense of the massing that the homes on John Street will experience. I emphasize that the current height limitation on this property is 4 stories. The land to the west of John Street and on Phillip Street are zoned R2 with a height limitation of 10 meters or 3 stories. And we understand that the property immediately to the south on River Road, Michael's Inn, in fact, has a limitation of 7 stories. I stand to be corrected. My zoning bylaw indicates that the property immediately to the south is 7 stories. The staff report on the 2006 application for the 29-story proposal stated, and I quote, "The intent of the official plan is to protect residential areas from the adverse effects of growth. Therefore, new residential development is to occur in a manner which is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood and is to be designed in a manner sensitive with the neighborhood in terms of density, height gradation, building mass, and arrangement, setbacks, and appearance." The report goes on to say that the official plan contemplates a maximum density of 75 to 100 units per hectare or 30 to 40 units per acre, and maximum building heights of 4 to 6 stories for properties on the periphery of the residential areas. That is another direct quote from the report in 2006. This proposal, by our calculation, has 263 units per hectare. When you leave out the property across River Lane to the west, your report and the official plan amendment indicates 230 units per hectare when you include that land. This is significantly greater, as we will see, than even the highest density contemplated by the official plan anywhere in the city. The existing neighborhood, we conclude, has a density of perhaps 10 units per acre. In 2006, city staff indicated that these lands were not to be considered in close proximity to the CBD, where the maximum density permitted by the official plan is 125 units per hectare. Both the CIP and the SIP recommend that high-rise development take place in the CBD. There is ample opportunities to take this proposal elsewhere in the city where it may in fact enhance the area. The planning report earlier this year states that minor increases in height and density may be allowed through bonus zoning provisions. In our submission, more than doubling even the greatest permitted density is not a minor increase. This development, Mr. Mayor, is not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood in terms of design and massing. Again, as indicated by staff in their previous report, most residences in this area have a maximum lot coverage of 40% per the current zoning regulations and a maximum building height of 10 meters or 3 stories. This proposal contemplates a lot coverage of 80% with 0 setback from River Road and a maximum height of 24 meters or 7.5 stories. Further north, where there are hotels located on River Road with residential housing to the west, the hotels, we understand, have been limited to 4 stories, with one exception of 5 stories. I'd like to touch briefly on traffic. I'm watching my time, Mr. Mayor. The detail of the site plan in tab 4, that is this one that is before you now, shows the location of the entrance and exit from the parking structure on John Street and its proximity to the residential homes immediately to the west. We estimate that the garage door for the proposed development will be opening and closing over 900 times a day with the associated noise. The entrance on John Street with the proposed 13 visitor parking space parcel on the land to the west of River Lane will expose the area residents to a great deal of traffic serving the proposed building. This is not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Why isn't there an entrance off River Road? The staff report of July the 21st this year indicates that road widenings of 0.91 meters or 3 feet are required to be dedicated along John and Phillip. We cannot find that any provision has been made in the site plan provided to you for these widenings. Either the setbacks will be affected or the building must be reconfigured. I'd like to touch briefly on geological impacts, if I might. The area residents have raised a concern with the impact of construction of the proposed building on the bedrock on which their homes are constructed. Tab 5 of my booklet contains an unofficial transcript made by one of the residents from a recording of the public meeting held on June the 12th, 2006, with respect to the earlier proposed 29-story building. I'd like to read from selections from it. This is a quote. AMEC concluded, quote, the construction of the proposed garden units and proposed high-rise should not have any adverse effect on the existing slope based on the findings of the present geological investigation. However, rock excavation using blasting should be minimized on site to avoid the potential of adverse effects on the underlying bedrock. The encountered bedrock is dolostone of Lockport Formation. The dolostone was classified as fair to excellent quality and was considered as a very strong bedrock based on the results of the compression tests. No significant signs of adverse joints or weak zones were observed in the rock core samples. Councillor Cario asked the question about the podium. Is there any reason why we could not have put some parking underground? The answer from the solicitor was the bedrock is not to be disturbed. And she then answered again, we have been told not to do any blasting. When I turn to the report of AMEC, which was provided by your staff today, we find that the quote up above is correct. I'd like to read it again. The encountered dolostone was described as fair to excellent quality for the upper 3 meters of the bedrock. Conventional excavating equipment will not be able to remove sound bedrock. It may be possible to scale the rock if only a very minor amount of bedrock needs removing. Generally, however, where bedrock removal is required, hoe ramming or blasting will probably be required. In view of the location, blasting is not recommended. Alternatively, the project architect could revise the finished floor slab and footing elevations to minimize the amount of rock excavation required. Tab 6 contains cross-sections from the 2006 proposal. It will be readily seen that the building was not proposed to be constructed into the bedrock to any extent. The architect took the advice of the geotechnical report. On the other hand, tab 7 contains cross-sections from the proposal before you this evening, and they are on the wall as well. In order to achieve the proposed height of 7 stories, the plan is to put the parking garage partially below grade, necessitating the excavation of bedrock, contrary to the advice previously given. If you look at the first page in tab 7, you will see a note on the left-hand side, 164.50 bedrock, and there is a faint line that arcs through the parking area. That is, as I understand it, the level of the bedrock and shows the extent of the bedrock which must be excavated to provide this parking area. Similarly, on the second page, another cross-section, this one from John Street, and you will again see the notation as to the depth of the bedrock and the extent of the bedrock which must be excavated in order to provide the parking. I note in passing, as I said at the beginning, if you look on the left-hand side, you will see the human figure with the angle of appearance up to the building, which gives you a sense of what you will see from the first home from along John Street across River Lane, which is quite narrow. Area residents then have serious concerns about the impact construction will have on their homes. Finally, with respect to the official plan, the proposal before you is to redesignate the subject lands to residential. The lands to the west are designated residential. Tab 8 of our booklet contains a brief selection from the residential section of the official plan of the City of Niagara Falls. I invite you to look at policies 1.73, 1.74, and 1.75. Mr. Herlovich, in his submissions to you this evening, took you to 1.75, which says high-rise apartments above 6 stories in height can be developed up to a maximum density of 125 units per hectare. Such development shall generally be located in close proximity to the central business district and other major commercial districts, parks, and open space areas. The site should also have convenient access to the arterial road system and public transit. I'd like to underline the fact that it is a maximum density of 125 units per hectare, maximum. We're proposing here tonight more than double that density, and this is to be located in close proximity, if I underline those words, close proximity to the central business district, which we submit to you is not. If you go back up to the page, then you will find that apartments of 4 to 6 stories can be developed up to a maximum of 100 units per hectare. Such development shall be located on the periphery of residential neighborhoods with convenient access to the arterial road system. And 1.73 provides that apartments of 3 to 4 stories in height can be developed up to a maximum density of 75 units per hectare. This gives you a sense of how dense this building on 80% of this property will be. Our respectful submission is that this proposal does not conform with the official plan. Mr. Mayor and members of council, in conclusion, for these reasons we are asking that you deny this proposal and determine that any residential building to be constructed on this site must be to a maximum height of 4 stories and meet the setbacks proposed in your report of July the 21st, 2008, namely that River Road be 0-meter setback, Phillips Street 6 meters, John Street 3 to 14 meters, and River Lane 10 meters. Finally, we do ask that you also direct that the official plan amendment for the previous application of 29 stories, which is still at the region as noted by Mr. Herlovich, and the zoning bylaw amendment, which was passed by this council, be repealed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richardson. Thank you. Are there any questions from members of council of Mr. Richardson at this point? Okay, thank you. I'll ask then for anybody else who, other than the applicant, who wishes to speak to this matter, please come forward. Is there anyone else other than the applicant who wishes to speak to this matter? Having seen none, then I'm going to ask the applicant or his representative to come forward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Before beginning our presentation tonight, we would like to start by thanking Messrs. Alex Hurlovich, Ken Mack, and Andrew Bryce for their kind assistance and guidance shown during the numerous meetings and discussions that have been held with respect to this proposal. We believe this proposal represents a balanced effort established on cooperation between city staff and the developer, which will, once construction is finalized, result in an outstanding development and an improvement to the community. With myself tonight is Mr. Michael Goldberg, the project planner, who would be pleased to answer any questions with respect to the planning aspects of the application, and Mr. Dan Cowan, the project architect, who would like to now provide you with an architectural presentation of the proposal.
Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Before you, the first slide is the site plan. First thing I would like to alleviate some confusion. We are hearing a lot about 7 stories. This, in fact, is a 4-story building under the Ontario Building Code. I want, as a registered architect, it is a 4-story building under the Ontario Building Code. That is as part of our submission, we have put in a building code matrix review. I'd like to begin by pointing out that the site from John Street and River Road to River Lane and Phillip Street slopes dramatically, over 9 meters. So that's 3 stories right there. If any of you are familiar with the site, you know that the existing homes, you have to go up at least a story, and then they're another half-story out, and then they're 2.5-story homes. So we're dealing with a grade here. So what we have is we have a podium, as the planning director explained to you. The podium houses the parking. Above that, there is a 4-story apartment building. The top story has a loft unit, so they have 2-story living rooms with a smaller loft unit. So I think the best way of thinking of it is that the loft portion is not unlike a traditional home that may be 2.5 stories that has a dormer up above, and so that is where we've popped up to give some extra room. It also helps to modulate the building. The building does front on River Road. It is true that it is a 0 setback. It's a 0 setback to the podium level. The podium level houses the parking. The parking, we are sloping because you can park on a slope. And we are working with the geotechnical consulting engineers and the existing bedrock elevations. So what we're doing is we're trying to excavate minimally, and we're sloping, basically. Our parking garage will actually slope. But as you can imagine, if you're buying a home, you would like the floors to be level. So what we need to do is we need to work from the level point at the corner of Phillip and River Lane, and that sets our datum for the podium, and our units are above that. The podium then is fully exposed at the corner of John and River Road, but we don't show parking there. We're showing a 2-story lobby. Then the parking is behind that wall. And then the wall along River Road is landscape. There's a water feature. There's a waterfall over it. So let me go through. The one last thing I'd like to also point out is the siting of it. The land across River Lane is being used for some surface parking for visitors. We have, in working with staff, allowed for a 2-meter landscape strip. So the impact is not on for the full length. Over 60% of the River Lane frontage is fronting either on our property or non-residential uses. So it's true the portion that the one house at John Street does back onto the lane, as does our building. But I'd like you to consider 2 points here. One is that it's a 4-story building at that point with a mezzanine loft. The podium is exposed by 1 story, but as you all know, John Street rises dramatically. So that house is already about a story above the level of our, it's at the level of our podium already. So we're not looking at a flat site by any stretch. Also, as I believe I understand, across John Street, the zoning is tourist commercial, which allows a much greater height than what we're asking for here. You can see this is the lowest parking level. So this is actually below grade, with the exception of the corner at John and River Road, where we have a lobby, a pedestrian entrance on the corner. Then 1 story above, we do have our drive off of John Street, where you would enter into the parking and then go down to the lower level. I'll just let you note that you can see that we don't go all the way to the Phillip Street property line here, and we're a bit closer here because what we're trying to do is not excavate any more than we need to and bury it as much as possible. The main lobby does face on John Street, and it's a 1-story lobby overlooking the 2-story lobby that comes to River Road. At this level, we have a datum line, finally, where we've got something level. This is a landscape courtyard. It's true that if you take the actual parking garage, it is around 80% of the total site area, but out of that portion of the parking garage, we only occupy about 70% because we're giving another 30 back to a landscape terrace. And so it is landscaping. Think of it as, I don't know, think of it as a green roof. It's on top of a structure. It will be planted. It is an amenity for the residents. This just gives you a little bit of detail. You can see that there's a water feature, and that will fall over the edge. That's the central area, which will be seen from River Road, which will not be enjoyed by the residents, but will be enjoyed by anyone traveling along River Road. Typical unit configurations. All I'd like to point out is that when we get to the 4th floor, the bottom plan is the 4th floor units. Those are the loft units. And when you look above, there are stairs, and they go up. You can see the portions that have an X through them. Those are 2-story living room, dining rooms, and then there's an open loft area that overlooks it, and the bedrooms underneath it on the main floor. So the views and the overlook is going to be limited to, and again, this is an Ontario Building Code issue, 40%. We can only have 40% of the total area of the unit can be part of the loft. So the overlook right there, you can tell that we're going to be limiting it. This is an elevation of the project from River Road. You can see in the bottom left, that is the 2-story lobby. Then the waterfall in the center. Then there's a secondary lobby up towards Phillip Street as well. In between, we're going to use a series of louvers and back-painted glass, things to screen so that you can't, you're not looking at the parking, but we're creating an architecture out of it, as well as having the boulevard fully landscaped. The elevation on the left shows you the dramatic grade change. On the right-hand side, you're at River Road and John. Coming up, you can see to your left, you can see that would be the drive-in. The garage door that was mentioned is actually set back significantly. There's a covered lay-by. You drive underneath the building so that if you wanted to drop someone off at the front lobby, then go park the car. And on the other side is the colored elevation of what you would see on Phillip Street. Again, going from 4 stories at the lane, and then the little pop-ups you see, those are the loft parts. That's where the extra glazing is. And then down where the, at River Road, where the podium emerges. And again, we are not changing any grades at the property line. We are meeting existing grades everywhere. So this is existing topography that we're dealing with. Frankly, I'd rather have a flat site without, it's a bit easier to plan on. This is an elevation of the River Lane side. John Street is on your right. Phillip Street is on your left. So again, you can see the 4-story, then the mezzanine pop-ups along. We are planning on planting columnar trees as requested by planning. we've set the terrace level back 3 meters, so we have significant landscaping along that stretch of the lane. These are some typical sections that just explain, but you can see that the parking levels are actually sloped. We are limited to sloping the parking levels to 4%. Any greater than that, car doors are going to swing open and there's going to be problems. This is a section, I think you saw this section previously. We are, however, working with the existing bedrock elevations as we understand it. This is a view of the proposal from the corner of River Road and John Street. So you can see the two-story lobby in the foreground, the waterfall up the street as the grade rises, the building setting back. From Phillip Street and River Road, again looking down towards the waterfall, back up to the residential street. This is a view at the River Lane and Phillip. So you can see that it's 4 stories with the pop-ups which create the mezzanines. And the parking garage let me start again. The parking garage is not exposed at this point at all. And then this is at John Street and River Lane where you can see the driveway going in. An aerial view to give you an idea of the massing and the fact that the building itself, while the podium on River Road is setback 0, there is significant setback to accommodate a terrace once you're above that 1.5-story level. These are the shadow studies that were referred to. This is in June. So you can see that at 9 o'clock in the morning, our shadows are barely going beyond the boundary of River Lane to the north. Or not the north, I'm sorry, I'm mixed up, to the east. Is it west? Okay, west. Then by 1 o'clock in June, you can see that the building is casting almost no shadow at all, a wee bit on the boulevard on River Road and on its own landscape terrace. June at 4 o'clock, you can see that the building is casting a shadow across River Road in parts, but as has been pointed out by Mr. Hurlovich, it is a one-sided road, it is a gorge. March, September, sort of the equinox, 9 in the morning, you can see that at 9 in the morning there is some shadowing on beyond River Lane. The property that will be affected is the one on John Street, because I would like to bring to your attention again that the little fork that goes up off of River Lane to the west, everything from there north is actually non-residential in nature. That's where our parking is. So we're shadowing our own yard at 9 in the morning. By 1 o'clock at the equinox, we're not shadowing anything except for a little bit of Phillip Street. And then by 4 o'clock, we are shadowing River Road. Again, I don't think that that's going to be a huge problem. This is just a little video that'll just let you walk around the building and get a sense of how the mass changes, how the grade changes. We are working hard to animate River Road. The base is going to be clad in the same stone that the Niagara Parks Commission uses in its walls on the other side. We're trying to be very respectful of the gorge, and we've met with the Parks Commission. They have no objections to this development. The other thing I'd like to mention is that something was said that there were no setbacks requested. There is a 0.91 meter setback requested by planning staff for both John Street and Phillip Street. We have accommodated that in our most recent application, as well as a 5-meter daylight triangle at River Lane at both ends, at John Street and Phillip Street, in order to make it safe for vehicular movements. So we are adhering to all of those. Takes you around. And this is just another view of an artist's concept of the project, looking down along River Road, the bridge in the background, the American Falls beyond. It gives you a sense of what we hope, that the boulevard space is a pleasant green space using native species and I know Niagara Parks Commission is very concerned about that because they don't want invasive species on their land. This is their land. They are in favor of creating a small pause, a place where people could sit along if they're walking along River Road that's on the public boulevard adjacent to the waterfall. As you can see, the terrace would be above that, and the bulk of the mass at the terrace level is rendered in stone to match the existing stone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
I'd like to have Mr. Goldberg just respond to a few comments made by Mr. Richardson with respect to the units per hectare.
Members of Council, I'm Michael Goldberg from Goldberg Group. There's just a few things I'll just raise briefly. In terms of the permissions that exist immediately to the south on Michael's Inn, I'm just going to add that the official plan permission is for 9 to 12 stories on Michael's Inn. So this transitions down from what I'm going to refer to as a 5-story building at the lane, or 4 to 5-story building at the lane, and a 7-story building at the southeast corner of the building at John and River Road, which provides for a nice transition as one is traveling from south to north, where Michael's Inn has the official plan permission of 9 to 12 stories, transitioning down to the 5 to 7 stories building, and then as one is traveling further north along River Road to the lower density residential, further beyond that. In terms of your official plan and the units per acre density measure, I'm going to just suggest, and we had a lot of discussions with planning staff about this during our discussion, and I'm just going to suggest that provision of your official plan at 125 UPA or UPH units per hectare is an old provision. It was a provision that was determined at a time, first of all, when unit sizes were quite large, so that it doesn't result really in a very particularly effective form of measure of the building mass, because quite frankly, what we have here are smaller units, which are more contemporary units, and you could have precisely the same development that you have before you with half the units per hectare density if only the units were larger. So I'm going to suggest to you that a better measure is a floor area ratio or floor space index measure, and I can advise members of council that the floor space index or floor area ratio measure of this proposal, if you just take the main site, in other words, the lands east of River Lane, it's at 2.65. And I'm going to suggest to members of council that at 2.65 floor area ratio or floor space index is a very moderate level of density when you're dealing with edge developments on an arterial road adjacent to a lane and transitioning from a lower density residential neighborhood to the west over to this edge location. So at more time than any members of council has provincial policy dictated that you should be promoting compact form, transit supportive development, more efficient use of land and resources. And I'm going to suggest to you that this, what's before you this evening, is an expression of implementation of current provincial policy as expressed in both the provincial policy statement and the growth plan that was referred to by Mr. Hurlovich. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
With respect to the staff report, we've had an opportunity to review the revised staff recommendation report, which recommends approval of the application, and we agree with one of the two suggested conditions. The condition with respect to design changes is acceptable to our client because these design changes reflect a concerted effort between staff and the developer. For this reason, the applicant is pleased with the design changes recommended and agreed to in the staff report. The second condition with respect to bonusing. Although the Planning Act allows Council to pass a zoning bylaw authorizing increases in height and density of development beyond that which is allowed by the official plan in exchange for community facilities and/or services, and although the city's official plan includes a policy addressing bonusing in such cases, to our knowledge, such a bonusing agreement has never been entered into between a residential developer and the city in the past. However, we wish to remind you that in a previous application, which was considered and approved by you last month, there was a request for an increase in height and density, which was larger than what is being requested here tonight, and was not subject to a bonusing agreement. That application was distinguished because those subject lands were located in the Main and Ferry CIP area. Although these subject lands are not located in the same Main and Ferry CIP area, these subject lands are located in an area where there is an exemption by the Regional Municipality of Niagara for the imposition of development charges. Due to the location of the lands, Section 8A of the Region's Bylaw number 90-2004 provides for 75% exemption from the applicable development charge. Section 8B of the said bylaw permits the exemption for the remaining 25% of the applicable development charge because it meets 3 or more of the criteria listed in that said section. However, most importantly, Ms. Sue Mabey, Regional Planner, in her letter dated July 7, 2008, states, quote, "The subject lands are identified in the city's official plan as being in a community improvement area that is included in the region's development charges waiver exemption program for the city's central area. The proposed development may take advantage of financial incentives that are available for regional and city programs to stimulate redevelopment." And for this reason, we kindly request that the condition with respect to the Section 37 bonusing agreement be deleted. With respect to the letters of objection, you have received copies of these letters of objection from some of the neighbors. This applicant has met several times in informal meetings with the residents and formally in a neighborhood meeting which was held in July. The height and density issues pertaining to this proposal have been thoroughly investigated and discussed. We believe that this proposal presented to you tonight is the best option for the developer, the subject area, and the subject lands. With all due respect to Mr. Richardson's comments, the historical background information provided pertaining to ORE's application from 2006 and previous drawings which were submitted tonight, prepared by a previous architect for this proposal, are interesting. However, that is not the application that's before you tonight. In fact, his historical comments actually indicate how much better this proposal is than what was presented to you in the past. Also, contrary to Mr. Richardson's comments, all road widening and daylighting triangles will be located on site. I believe Mr. Calling has discussed the setbacks with you, and I don't propose to speak on that matter any further. With respect to support, you have seen the positive comments made by city staff and by regional planning staff who note that the proposal provides an opportunity for intensification in the urban area that will make efficient use of land and infrastructure and other additional housing choice. We believe this proposal will make a far better use of the land than the existing tourist commercial approval, which would allow a 4-story motel having 112 units. You have also seen the positive comments made by staff of the Niagara Parks Commission in their letters dated July 3rd, and in particular in their letter dated September the 11th, whereby the revised design was reviewed without objection. I'm not aware if you will receive copies of the numerous letters of support that have been submitted, but I will distribute extra copies of things.
We have received them earlier. Thank you.
Okay, I wasn't sure, I just received them late this afternoon.
We have received them from the clerk.
You'll note that there's 20 letters of support. In conclusion, we kindly request that you approve this application tonight, together with the bylaws pertaining to the OPA and the rezoning of the lands placed later on tonight's agenda, as bylaws 2008-173 and 2008-174 respectively, with the exception of the last 2 paragraphs of 2008-173 of the OPA and with the exception of sections 7 and 8 in bylaw 2008-174 zoning, which we kindly request be deleted as it pertains to the section 37 bonusing if you approve our request tonight. I'm open to any questions.
Okay, are there any questions from members of council of Ms. Gilberti? It's not. Thank you very much. Any questions of those present for qualification of the... Yes, please come forward.
Ann Beauregard, 5435 River Road. Our stated objection is to the setback on River Road. And just looking at these drawings here, the zero setback is equal to the setback for Michael's Inn, I believe. And when you walk by Michael's Inn, there's certainly not, the opportunity for this really beautiful landscaping that we're looking at here. So I'm just pointing that out. I think there's something in the way the pictures are being taken there that is exaggerating the space that there really is going to be in front of this building. Living on River Road and walking by Michael's Inn all the time, Michael's Inn is only 20 feet in, and it's quite a wall, and they could have done more with their landscaping, but there really isn't very much space there to create what we're seeing here in these pictures. I otherwise think it's a nice project, but I would like to see it set back a little further from River Road, or I would like to see this landscaping fully implemented as shown in these pictures. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Beauregard. Mr. Goldberg, do you care to answer that question with regard to the setback?
The landscape that you see there is within the municipal boulevard, so it is accurate, it's scalable, it is what you would see once it's constructed. There's no question about that. These are very detailed drawings at a site plan level of detail, and in fact, the applicant has already filed a formal site plan application with a formal and detailed landscape plan which depicts all of the details that you see in this rendering. I think that was the...
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Diodati.
Mr. Bishop, I understand what the woman was saying. I think what she's asking is the property line where the building is? Because I thought I heard the other gentleman earlier say that's Parks property and they want native species on that property. So is that green that we're looking at, is that actually Parks property?
Yes, it's the road allowance.
Okay, so the Parks own up to the wall?
Yes.
Okay, so in other words, through your worship, that greening area will be green because it doesn't belong to the developer, it belongs to the Parks Committee?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. Please come forward.
Al Dolson, 5435 River Road. I take exception to this here, that I have an architectural background, and I know a lot about condominium developments and how it looks before you buy and how it looks afterwards. And this is more like 50 feet. I walk all the time. We walk to Clifton Hill, up to Tim Hortons, and we go by Michael's Inn. It's like a wall. And that's what this is. This here looks more like 50 feet. It's very generous, and I understand it was very clever, and that's the way you want to do these things. But I would prefer a more setback on Phillip and on River Road. I'm not opposed to the project, but I would like more of a comfort zone there.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from members? Yes, please come forward.
My name is Judy Kowarsik, and I'm the owner of the house at 5419 River Road. I do not have questions. I just want to say that the project is great, and it looks really beautiful, and that people on River Road, some people are going to complain, and I think it's time for development in this area to start. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, Councillor Diodati.
Sorry, Your Worship, just a little more clarification. Could we find out from the developer what the distance is from the building to the sidewalk?
Certainly. Mr. Goldberg or the architect? Mr. Cowan?
Yes, I'll answer that. It varies, actually. If we just go back, This is a good one. You can see that the boulevard varies. Our building is on our property, but at the typical point through, it's about 22 feet maybe, and so there's a 5-foot sidewalk, so there's about 17 feet of landscaping to the face of the parking structure, which is clad. Okay. But it does vary. And just to point out, by native species, all I mean is all I meant was that Niagara Parks Commission has we've met with them. The species that are planted on their land must meet certain criteria, and that was really all I was referring to. But the intention is that design is accepted by parks and implemented by the developer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cohen. Yes, Councillor Maves.
For you, Your Worship, to Mr. Hurlovich, just looking at those bylaws about the density, are these figures are outdated, as mentioned earlier? The 3 to 4 stories and the 4 to 6 stories and above 6 stories. Mentioned that these are outdated. Is that fact?
Mr. Hurlovich?
Should we change those?
Councillor, I believe you're looking at tab 8 of Mr. Richardson's submissions. Those are our current requirements. They really reflect perhaps more a greenfield type of development. And our office is looking at this. This is part of responding to the provincial growth plan. And so certainly we will be looking at updating our official plan in the next couple of years. That is not, it's not going to take us, or it's not going to happen in 2 years' time, but it will take us time to update our official plan, and so it is on our work agenda. But certainly we are looking at additional densities in order to be able to meet the 40% target that I outlined at the beginning of my presentation.
Another question is how accurate are these sun projects? Are they shadowscaping? Are they?
I would like to keep.
Like, I'm concerned about the shadowscaping. I'm also concerned about the fact that, and I know that we just passed last year an apartment building that's looking right down in the people's backyards, and that's one of my big concerns here.
Mr. Hurlovich?
Yeah, so probably the project architect could address it more specifically with respect to shadowing, but they are computer generated. They're based on the line of sun within the Southern Ontario region, so they are generated by computers, so they're fairly accurate. With respect to the project on that you're referring to on St. Paul Avenue, there are some differences, and that is that the actual units here are set back about 5 to 6 meters from River Lane. So we already have a distance of about 15 feet, which is about the same distance as between that St. Paul condos and the back of the houses on Emma Street. But we also have the added advantage that we have the width of River Lane as an additional setback. And then we have the lands that are actually going to be part of the parking area, the surface parking area. So this is quite unlike the St. Paul Avenue situation. So there are a number of other factors that weigh in here. So I can't draw a direct parallel that
Councillor?
There was another concern about the parking garage about opening and closing about 900 times, and the neighbor on John Street, would that is that sufficient distance away or protected from this neighbor? So wouldn't be bothered with that?
Oops. Excuse me, you can see, Councillor, on this slide, I don't know if does this thing work? All right. So at the top left of the screen, you can see that the driveway comes in from John Street. You can see the extra width of that building. That's the drop-off area. Thank you. So
going up higher up the hill.
Yeah, well, you're going to come up the hill. You're going to drive in underneath the apartment building. So the garage door is that dotted line right where the red marker is now. So That's the garage door. It's actually set inside of the building. This is what the architect was trying to describe. And so we actually have a wall between that garage door and the residential dwellings to the north.
So there is a buffer area then?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you very much. Now, are there any further questions by members of council? First, go ahead, Councillor Fisher.
Very quickly, in brand new construction, brand new homes, your setback in your front yard is 20 feet. So I think that expresses how far back this building will be sitting before. So I think it's a pretty good, safe front yard. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward, sir. Another question you have? Please come up to the front. Oh, please come up.
Only two comments. John Prentice, my wife and I live at 4413 John Street. Definition, they say it's 4 stories. Where I live, it's about 7.5, the way I have it figured. So it's not a 4-story development. It's at least 7, not 7.5. And it was referred that there were numerous meetings held with residents to meet with the developer. As far as I know, there were only 2. And we did appreciate that, but there was only 2, not more than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions by members of council or those persons present? Okay, having seen none, then the public meeting with respect to the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment is now concluded. The pleasure of council. Councillor Fisher moves the recommendation. There's a seconder to the motion. Seconded by Councillor Ioannoni. Any further discussion or comment? Yes, Councillor Wing.
I'm going to vote against the motion. I believe it's come down significantly from before when I was unable to vote on it, but it is still an overdevelopment of the site. I understand the need for intensification within urban boundaries, but I don't believe this is the right site for it. Mr. Richardson's submission speaks of the charm and character of the area, and I would suggest that this area with the stately homes and landscape grounds that most of the properties along there feature has the potential for inclusion as a heritage conservation district under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. I know recently the Municipal Heritage Committee, we looked at Oshawa's Heritage Conservation District as a case study, and this area this part of River Road sounds just like what they conserved there. I think it speaks volumes that in addition to, I think it's about 60 names that Mr. Richardson cites as those who have retained them, but in addition to those named, more than 30 other residents have made financial contributions to help in the opposition to the overdevelopment of this unique area. Now, these aren't just people from elsewhere in the city, the North End, Chippewa, so forth, signing form letters. In fact, the top copy, the people here scratched out in support of the proposed plans and wrote strongly opposed. The form I signed was in opposition. I don't know who changed it, so it's not 20, it's 19. And right away, the other 19 are questionable. These aren't people who've just signed a form letter. These are people who've stepped up to the plate and put their money where their mouth is and contributed financially to retaining Mr. Richardson to keep this development out of that area. It is a very special and unique area. I've always realized that, and I think we need to do what we can to support the residents and not start the encroachment that this will represent, I'm quite certain, into this area. I think we really need to help it retain its character, so I will not support this. It's an overdevelopment, and it's too dense.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from members of council? Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 1, 2. And there's 1 abstention, or 1 conflict, correct? And so the motion is carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, members of council. Members of council, I have a few comments this evening. I'd like to begin this evening by offering our congratulations to our city clerk, Dean Irfita and Noel, on the birth of their new baby, Alice and Christina, born yesterday morning at 8:55. Is that correct? 8:50. 8:50?
To be exact.
Didn't hurt a bit, right? And to Councillor Victor Pietrangelo and his wife Anita as they welcome their new baby son, Remy, to their family. Congratulations, Councillor. Send our best to your wife as well. Congratulations to you on your growing families. I would like to as well thank the 450-plus members of the community who came out to participate in the public meeting to discuss the Niagara Health System Plan on Friday evening. I appreciate hearing the important comments from around the room. I wanted to be able to provide the opportunity for residents to have their voices heard by Dr. Jack Kitts and his review team. I am confident that this meeting allowed people to convey a strong message to him on Friday. I'd like to thank Councillor Iannone for her efforts and presentation to Dr. Kitts and acknowledge the efforts of the ad hoc committee. In addition, council members in attendance had the opportunity to share their views of the plan, and together we presented a clear perspective from the point of view of Niagara Falls residents. I trust that Dr. Kitts will give the residents' views every consideration when he drafts his recommendation to the local health integration network and the provincial government. I'd also like to advise residents of some recent notable events in our community. I was pleased to join delegates at the Bridges to Better business event held downtown this past week and hosted by our small business office. This was a very successful event that allowed business people from around Niagara to come together to share information, to participate in professional development. I was also pleased to see the successful effort to engage and support businesses in our community. And I want to thank our city staff and community partners for creating such a worthwhile program. And coming up, we have some very important events taking place I would like to share with you. It will be a pleasure to attend the Summer Trillium Awards presentation, as you heard, tomorrow evening at the Best Western Carencroft at 6:30 p.m. I'm looking forward to congratulating all the participants and award winners who took special care of their gardens this year and made our city very proud. Thanks to the Parks, Recreation, and City staff for organizing this year's award ceremony. This Wednesday again, I should note that October 8th will mark the Estee Lauder Pink Celebration for Best Breast Cancer Awareness event. The Canadian Tenors will perform inside at the newly renovated Table Rock House, and the perfect vantage point to view the evening's fireworks and pink lighting of the falls. It will be an amazing free event for the public that includes a silent auction where checks and cash will be accepted, and the proceeds will go to breast cancer awareness campaign. A $5 parking fee at the Table Rock will also be donated to the cause, and we hope to see a great number of people there on Wednesday evening, beginning at 6 p.m. to support this exciting, positive event in our community. Also as well, the annual Man a Mile relay race will take place on Thanksgiving Monday, October 13th. It departs from McFarland Park along the Niagara Parkway and will end up at Oaks Park. Runners are expected to arrive at Oaks Park around 10:45 a.m., and we look forward to the community support of this annual event. As well, Chief Lee Smith has asked me to mention two events for your consideration as well. Fire Prevention Week 2008 is coming up, and we have a theme, Prevent Home Fires. The upcoming activities include on Tuesday, October 7th, from 6 to 9 p.m. at the McBain Center, there will be a fire prevention display. And on Thursday, October 9th, from 6 to 8:30, the Niagara Square parking lot near the cinemas, there will be a fire prevention education, fire extinguisher demos, including room fire simulation, auto extrication demonstration, clowns. There will be a Dalmatian bouncer for kids, and a static display of fire trucks and fire boats. Before I wrap up my remarks this evening, I would like to inform members of the public that on October 20th, we will not be holding a regular scheduled council meeting. City Council will be participating in a downtown workshop. The Canadian Urban Institute is assisting the city and downtown BIA by providing research services and by providing this workshop that will build upon the mutual interest in revitalization and community improvements in the historic core of Niagara Falls. So please be advised on October 20th there will not be a regularly scheduled council meeting. I thank you for your attention. Yes, Councillor Thompson.
Excuse me. I'd like to make some comments about the meeting at the NFCBI old auditorium and Dr. Kitts. First of all, I want to congratulate Councillor Iannone, who did, in my opinion, a spectacular job in relaying the committee's, endorsed committee of council's feelings with respect to what we were attempting to do here with our health care. There's nothing more important in this community than law and order and public safety, and on two occasions I've waited for you to be the leader in these issues, and on both of them you've been sadly lacking in your ability to lead this council. First of all, suggesting that we can be without a police building and having more police on the street, which would never happen. And secondly, the whole focus of what we were attempting to do was to try and zero in on the site, regardless of the comments that are made by Dr. Kitts and others, that this is a done deal. In my opinion, if we go along with that, we're putting ourselves 50 years behind the 8 ball in healthcare. And in no area of your comments did you mention that the siting was of serious interest to this community and to this council. And the whole focus of Councillor Iannone's comments and the committee, and I might add that all of them did an excellent job in working on this committee, particularly the medical fraternity, who specifically came out, and I was extremely disappointed with the moderating at that particular event because the doctors came out to make comments and they were cut off in the middle of their statements. These are doctors who have been on the committee, who are concerned about the hospital, and yet after 3 minutes they were cut off. It was embarrassing to see somebody like Dr. Nicholson and others cut off in the start of their presentation. So I tell you, there were a lot of people there to make their own comments, but the real meat of the whole substance of the discussion was certainly hearing from the medical community and their concerns. This is the document that Councillor Iannone delivered. It specifically asked for reciting, which has been on the boards for the past 10 years, suggesting that it be located centrally. I don't think anybody on the committee or whatever have deviated from that. And this was the document that was given to Dr. Kitts. The council did not have the opportunity a long time before. We were handed it. I had seen it, certainly, on the committee, but the council did not see it as a whole prior to that. And I think it's important that the council have a resolution endorsing this as our submission to make sure that Dr. Kitts gets the message, because I listened to Dr. Kitts, and I can tell you, reading the comments in the paper previously and his comments at the meeting, there's no way that we have any opportunity to change that site in my mind. And in fact, Councillor Iannone said after that it wasn't his mandate. He was there just to look after the hear the submissions without consideration of the site. This is, without exception, one of the major things we're dealing with in this term of council. And to start off with, and I know Councillor Iannone probably wants to make some comments, I also would like to thank the committee who participated, particularly Nancy Reynolds-Height, who has spent 20-some-odd years in covering hospital boards in this community and was invaluable in hitting the key points of what we should be doing with respect to that, and the medical community who were involved at every meeting and did a great job. So I'd make a motion that we endorse Councillor Iannone's comments as a council to make sure that Dr. Kitts knows that this council supports exactly what was said and recommended in that report.
I have a motion by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Wing. Any further discussion or comments? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Councillor Iannone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your kind words, and thank Councillor Thompson. And I want to thank the review for their kind words today, but quite frankly, that bouquet belonged to Councillor Diodati, Councillor Thompson, Janie Palmer, Nancy Eit, Bob Gale, Bill Haskin, Dr. Deck, Dr. Nicholson, and Dr. Ofierski. That was a team effort. It was not just myself. And I thought we've worked together quite well. I also have to give a bouquet to our secretary, Teresa, who sat with me Friday while I rewrote that for 4 hours and typed as I dictated, and I appreciate her help more than I can imagine, because I'm a talker, I'm not a typer. So I thank you very much. I want to say thanks to the residents who came out, but I'm not as optimistic as you, Mr. Mayor, because quite frankly, Dr. Kitts opened with, he doesn't have his mind pre-made up, and 3/4 of the way through the presentation pretty much said to us, if you object to the site, it's going to be, he used the NHS threat, it'll be 10 years till you get a new site. I think that's a load of BS, quite frankly. I had a reporter actually email me when Minister Kaplan went to Oakville years ago, 2005, to make the announcement of their money for the $200 million for their hospital there. And he made that $200 million presentation for a hospital that hadn't had a site picked yet. So we have a design-build hospital that could really be built on any of the, I think, 4 to 6 sites that they looked at. And I really take objection to the threat that if we continue to question, we may lose a new hospital for another 10 years. That's a load of bull. And quite frankly, I'm tired of the NHS handing us that. And also I have to say how disappointed I am that I guess we have the LHIN coming to speak to us. And our premise with the committee, and when you go out and talk, you listen to the Ontario Medical, what are they, the Ontario Health Coalition, talk about the level of government created with the LHIN. And thank you for introducing me to the chair of the LHIN, but I'm really disappointed our government has handed over the responsibility to a bureaucratic board who's going to make the decision for the residents in Niagara Falls who didn't vote for them. I mean, I've been pretty vocal on that. It's my party in power. I have a problem with that. I want to know where Dalton McGuinty stands on this. I want to know where Minister Kaplan stands on this. I'm sure the LHIN is full of lovely, wonderful people, but they're not who I voted for. I want to see where our premier is. I mean, the man campaigned on coming from a family of 10 and understanding hardships and hard economic times and how hard it is for families raising a lot of kids. Well, he didn't have to drive from Fort Erie to West St. Catharines to have his kids taken care of. So where's our government on this? Our MPP, thank God, is coming out loud and strong in regards to what's taking place down here, but where is the ministry? And just so you know, Minister Kaplan didn't speak to us at AMO because he doesn't like the comments coming out of this council chamber. You know that. Councillor Diodati knows that. He wanted it raised in camera. Well, I'll raise it out here. The minister didn't speak to any municipal delegation that are questioning decisions made by the LHIN. And I found that out on a conference call with 40 other people, almost 20 of them being municipal politicians and mayors across Ontario who are being told to step back and stop complaining. We can't step back, we can't stop complaining, because when we do, we're going to all be driving our kids to West St. Catharines in the middle of the night or in the middle of the day for an emergency. I didn't think Dr. Kitts was all that sincere, I'm sorry. I thought he was quite condescending and quite frankly rude to the anesthesiologist that stood up there and spoke. And afterwards said, may I speak to you? And when he spoke to me, he said, I liked the Mike Harris days where it was just a swipe of the pen and a hospital was closed and amalgamated. Are you kidding me? That's why he's not in power anymore. We need our government to come down and speak to us. And quite frankly, the mandate of our committee has not been achieved yet. Dr. Kitts came. I thought it was a nice exercise, but quite frankly, when he said, I do not have a mandate to do anything but look at the hospital improvement plan, I do not have a mandate to move any of the hospitals that sit on the 6 locations they sit on, then our committee's not done. Our committee now has to go forward and not go after the LHIN, but address McGuinty and Kaplan and make them be answerable to the residents of Niagara Falls, Port Colborne, Fort Erie. This just isn't working for us. So while I thank you for your comments, I don't think we can expect anything from Dr. Kitts other than a rubber stamp of the hospital improvement plan. And should that happen, let me say that's contrary to the previous reports that I printed off and did my homework on to find how he made his decisions for amalgamating other hospitals. And one of the crux of amalgamating Ottawa was the fact that they had intermunicipal transportation and people could get to the sites readily. There is $45 to $60 million worth of transportation infrastructure that hasn't been accounted for that's going to come back to the residents of Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, Port Colborne, Fort Erie, and we haven't even seen what that's going to take. And one more thing, I want to congratulate the Chamber of Commerce, who did exactly what they're supposed to do in their responsibility, and they went out to the small businesses and they said, what do you think on this? 65% of the small businesses did not like what's taking place right now, and thank goodness, because when the trickle-down effect to the costs, the tax costs to substantiate the transportation to that new hospital hit the residents and the small business and the economy we're in now, we're going to be screaming foul. So thank you to the residents. We're going to submit our petition to MPP Crater, and I would have liked to have some personal time with Dr. Kitts. Quite frankly, we didn't have the question and answer time. I know that the invitation was extended to council and you chose to go by yourself, and I quite frankly don't understand that because we had asked. Actually, I have an email I sent you at AMO asking to be included, and your only response was you would bring the resolution from council. I had 2 minutes when Dr. Kitt said I'd like to speak to you. I would have liked to have an extended time to that because I think maybe we could have got some more questions. I'd have changed the focus of my presentation had I known he was going to come off that stage and tell me this is not my mandate. So I don't think we can stop. I think we need to continue going, and I think we now have to stop focusing on the LHIN and be far more aggressive on the province. And I hate to target the government I voted in, but quite frankly, are the women who can't get gynecological care anymore, the new parents who want to have their children here, and parents who have brand new children. We have 2 sitting here right now whose kids would not be cared for at GNGH if they get sick. It's too late once we just let them slide on this. Just one more thing. Can you tell me why the LHIN is coming here again? I'm sorry.
About a year ago, I invited the LHIN to use our chambers and to have a meeting locally so the people of Niagara Falls would be able to identify with these people. And they're holding their one of their monthly board meetings here in the chamber on October 28th at 1 o'clock.
So Kitts is going to do his presentation here at 1 o'clock?
They'll receive the report here. I'm not sure if I think he's making it. I'm not sure about that.
He said at our public meeting that he was going to make the presentation to the LHIN on the 28th,
and so
which is great, so I don't have to drive to Grimsby.
That's right.
So we will know the outcome of his report summary on the 28th. That's great. A little late for us to actually address the LHIN personally ourselves, to say to them, look, we don't want this to happen. And I'll say, I hope the LHIN took a good, hard listen in Fort Erie, and Port Colborne's is the 15th, and I'll go to that. I watched their rally yesterday on the news, and I hope they take a good, long listen to if we're all speaking from the same voice, that it's not working with the NHS. Quite frankly, it's not working even more importantly with the doctors and the nurses and the NHS, who are terrified to speak out loud in that hospital. Thank you.
Councillor Diodati.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to expand on what's been said here about the meeting on Friday night, Dr. Kitts had 3 main points the way I saw it. I was taking notes, and the first point that he made was the status quo is unacceptable, which I think we all agree with and we understand that there's X amount of dollars to go around and it's not going to be enough. The second main point he made is that you need a world-class facility to attract world-class doctors, which again, we don't disagree with. And it's funny because with that statement, what he was kind of implying is that we're going to have a big facility. It's got to be a world-class facility. Perhaps it's going to be a regional facility. And then his third main point was that if Niagara is to survive, it has to act as one community. He acknowledged that we're not one community. We're 12 communities. We're not like Ottawa. And he acknowledged the differences. But he said we need to act as one community. And again, we don't disagree. That's why we've been suggesting that why are you allowing a divisive decision to be made by, for political reasons, placing the hospital in an area not accessible and not central to the region. If you want us to act as a community, we need to start treating it as a community. And that's why, as far as I was concerned, by his own admission, building it central was the only way to go. And I know his mandate was to look at the HIP plan, not necessarily to study the location. But at the same time, the point I was trying to make before the mic got cut off, because some people say I'm talkative. I don't know who these people are. But anyway, the mic got cut off. I couldn't finish the point. But the point was, often some of the most important discoveries known to man have happened by accident. And one of them is, of course, many people find it important, the fact that they're looking for an angina drug when they discovered Viagra. And that's when I got cut off, right? Nobody knew where I was going with that point. Teflon was discovered by accident. Penicillin was discovered by accident. Perhaps he could discover by accident that the location is an accident. And that's why it was real clear that all the doctors, well over 100 that signed a petition, as Councillor Iannone pointed out, it's not often that all doctors agree. And we had doctors from Welland, Fort Colborne, Fort Erie, Niagara Falls, Niagara Lake, all felt the same way. That if you want better health care, you want better bang for the buck, and if you want us to be as one community, you need to locate it centrally. And of course, transportation is a major issue with where they're proposing it. It seemed to us to make such obvious sense that the only sensible thing to do is look at the location. It's something that has to be looked at. It's the elephant in the room that just can't be ignored. And I'm glad we had the chance to make this point with them. Whether he heard us or not, we'll have to see. But there's no question we need to continue our fight right to the Premier's office. We need to do all that we can with all that we have. Because as you said, this, and as it was said by Councillor Thompson, this is probably one of the more important issues that this council is going to deal with. Although it's not a municipal issue, it affects us all municipally. And Your Worship, if they located it centrally, we could all contribute toward it directly rather than indirectly by trying to siphon through the region. And that's why it's important to us, not just from a healthcare perspective. We want us to act as a community, but as a financial and fiduciary responsibility. Make us all a part of it, and we'll all be a part of it. Thank you.
Councillor, we may be surprised at what he comes back with, so I won't try to prejudge his report. So,
Your Worship, are you going to give us a $1,000 bet?
No inside information, unfortunately. Okay, we'll move on. Yes, Councillor Pietrangelo. I'm sorry, Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. I did attend. Out of 82,000 people in our city, we had approximately 300.
Can we just clarify that? We actually had 450 plus. So we had people counting those people. So we had 200 reported in the press, but really it wasn't 200. So
thank you for clarifying that. But I found that there was a lot of good information that came out in the sense that our fire chief told me information that I had no knowledge of, which put so much stress on the fire department. Now we're going to have to go to the far of St. Catharines. That's a very important issue. He brought up a lot of good points. We had doctors who brought up excellent information. We brought up one lady who said to Dr. Kep, when is your report coming out? October the 26th. She said, and when is groundbreaking? He didn't know. She said, let me tell you, your report coming October the 26th, groundbreaking is October the 24th. How does that fit? Mind you, it has now changed, only because that has been brought to light. But people missed out on a lot of good information that they really needed to know. And thank you, Chief, for the information that you brought to me, because I can't imagine the stress that's going to be put on our fire department and our transportation. That's another big issue. So this is all wrong, and I totally agree with Carolyn, Councillor. We can't stop here. This is not the end. This is the beginning of where we're going to go. We have to go forward. And the people have to come out and join us and go. Don't sit back and wait for council to do it all. You have to join us. You have to be part of this process. Thank you.
just for clarification, so there's no confusion again, Councillor, it's October 28th is he's reporting to the LIN.
If we're going to break the ground before that, so what's the difference?
Okay, Councillor Pietrangelo.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess just in light of some of the comments that were already made, I have to say that I agree with a lot of them. I don't like the process that's in place. I think that it's an unelected body that basically had the responsibility, and that is the NHS for all these years. And I think there's been many complaints about that body for a long time, and then the province has now taken another unelected body and allowing them to basically decide the future of all the services inside the NHS. And I don't like the process, and I agree with the comments that have already been made, but I also think that this is the process that's in place right now. And unless we can actually convince members from the provincial government to change the process, which I'd like to think would be possible, but I don't know whether or not that's going to happen, then we need to get on board with what the process is, because if we spend all our time complaining about the process, then in the end we're going to be the ones that are losers. And I said on Friday, Your Worship, that I mean, if you take a look at the region as a whole and where the hospitals are, Niagara Falls, I think, is probably a 30-minute distance at the farthest point from all of the farthest reaching areas, that being Port Colborne, Ridgeway, Fort Erie, Black Creek, Thorold, St. Catharines, and Niagara on the Lake. Whereas I don't think that any other hospital has that type of advantage. So, in my opinion, Your Worship, we should be putting forth the argument that we are the most central hospital, so therefore we should have all of the non-scheduled services, such as birthing and maternity, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully, Your Worship, if we lose the argument with our elected officials, that the process should be changed, then we need to get on board with what the process is right now.
I agree. Thank you. Councillor Ioannoni?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And on Councillor Pietrangelo point, I think we should let the residents outside of the 450 people know what our recommendation to Dr. Kitts was. We recommended that he create a neonatal unit at the new regional hospital, which will result in fewer referrals to Hamilton. This type of unit or center of excellence for premature babies could be positioned adjacent to any hospital in Niagara, but would be preferable in a central location, thus allowing them to leave the GNGH maternity ward and pediatric services for the residents of Niagara Falls and Fort Erie. If leaving these services in Niagara Falls cannot be accommodated, we ask that you review the current site location of the new regional hospital, because that's what it is. It's called spade a spade, and request that all work be stopped and a new central location be chosen to provide timely, accessible care for the residents of Niagara Falls with an established intermunicipal transportation system with the funding fully explained to the residents of this community. We also recommend that they disband the NHS and the board itself and replace it with a local elected governing board from people in Niagara Falls in the local area like we had before, because it wasn't broken then and they fixed it. Let's put it back so it's accountable for the residents. And that was the recommendations we sent through Dr. Kitts.
Okay, thank you. Ready to move on, if we can then, please, to communications and comments from the clerk. The first order, we have communications, the CUP, EQP, and SCFP request that Wednesday, October 22nd, 2008 be proclaimed as Child Care Worker and Early Childhood Education Appreciation in the City of Niagara Falls. Moved by Councillor Carrier, seconded by Councillor Maves. Any comments or questions? Having seen none, all those in favour? Motion's carried. Next item is the Niagara Falls Public Library requesting that the week of October 19th to 25th, 2008 be proclaimed as Ontario Public Library Week. Moved by Councillor Fisher, seconded by Councillor Pietrangelo. Any comments or questions? Having seen none, all those in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. Number 3, Arts and Culture Committee, the requesting the City of Niagara Falls take a formal stand against federal cuts to the arts and culture programs. We have a request by them, moved by Councillor Ioannoni, seconded by Councillor Fisher. Any comments or discussions? Councillor Wing?
I'm sorry, what's the motion? I was going to move that we receive and file this.
Well, it's the Arts and Culture Committee recommendation here.
Right, so they're moving forward. I'm going to vote against it. I think we're wading into waters that we shouldn't be in. This is federal matters. I looked through the list of recent cuts, and quite frankly, I don't see a thing in here that hurts Niagara Falls if it gets cut. I really don't worry too much about people losing their jobs up in Ottawa. There's plenty more jobs to be found up there. You know, there's only one taxpayer. And if these programs get cut so that funding for other programs which actually might benefit Niagara Falls can be maintained or adopted, well, why not? You know, if you read through this, I don't see what the problem is from a local standpoint. So I'm going to vote against the motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Maves?
I have to agree with Councillor Wing. I noticed a lot of these grants and whatnot. The programs are over. If you read into these things, and I don't think that they just want money for asking for money. I don't get it really, and I don't think they've been cut. It's just that some of these programs are ended. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll call the vote. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. All support the opposition. So I guess it'll stay as it is. Okay, and move on to item number 4. Mrs. Anna Etizadi is here tonight to speak to us, members of council, with regard to some changes in the city's animal control bylaw regarding chickens. I'd like to invite Mrs. Etizadi to come to the podium, and we'll have some questions if you wish thereafter. Okay. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Pietrangelo. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you, Mrs. Etizadi. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me and putting me on your meeting tonight, dear Mayor and council members. I am Anna Etizadi. I am a resident of 5435 Morning Glory Court.
Excuse me, could you just repeat that again?
5435 Morning Glory Court.
Okay, thank you.
Niagara Falls. And I've been there a year and a half. And when I moved in, I thought I was in a residential zone area. And then when my neighbor came with chickens and roosters, then I called the city's bylaw. And then that's where I found out that there was issues like this in 2002. It was brought to the council, and they eliminated the rooster issue and the noise issue. But there's still some matters regarding the existing bylaw that I have concerns with. Number one was the proper disposal of the chicken and waste, and how it's monitored, health risk that it has on the community and the neighboring property. Now, I contacted the health department, and they told me that it can be buried into the soil. But there again, on the long-term effect, we don't know where that's going to go, and there's no report on what happens there. The second thing is, yes, we have the storage, and he explained to me also how it's done, but he said to me, there's no way of controlling rodents coming in, especially when you're feeding the feed that goes to the chickens. So he advised me to put tamper-proof baits around my home. So, and that, secondly, I am going to get rodents, which I know because I have a cat. It's been bringing in rodents. The third thing is the health risk of the habitant, the chicken one. With this avian flu and all these issues that are surrounding everybody in the world, I just want to know, does the city know how many chicken coops we have in this city? Are they licensed? So if an outbreak should happen, can we know where to look if this should happen? Also about the rezoning. When we went to this new area, I assumed, it would stay at a resaleable value. But there again, he may like chickens, but I don't like chickens. And if you look at the majority, that's a problem about reassessing my homes, or when I do want to sell my home, how it will affect me and the neighbors. Also, I am in the hydro field, which has a ravine there, subdivision, and we have seen coyotes coming in because of the chicken coops. Now, we all have pets and children and elderly. Now, we have to worry about effects which already happened in this community by neighboring people, that they've had coyotes coming in to get the chickens and leaving the carcass on the field and then coming back. That's my other big concern about this issue. Now, if you grandfather in to say if considered, there again, that's my issue again, do we know how many people have chicken coops, rabbits, and everything else in this area? And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mrs. Zadie. The clerk wants to make a comment, then we have comments from council. So, Mr. Clerk, do you want to address some of this?
Well, I didn't really, but no, I mean, I think, okay.
You're saying, Councilor Thompson?
I'll respond to any questions.
Okay.
Yes, this is something that certainly Councilor Wing and the council dealt with a long time ago, many years. And to suggest that chickens in a residential area now are appropriate. One of the things that we should have done, and I've really picked this up in my conversation with the complainant here tonight, is basically we didn't have any kind of grandfathering for the existing ones that were in existence at that particular time. We could have, and now we have all new subdivisions. She's in a new subdivision, and yet all of a sudden somebody moves in and there's another chicken coop in a brand new residential area. They were usually confined to one of the older sections of the city, and I think it's time that this should be reassessed. If there's still some in the built-up old area of the community, maybe they would have to be grandfathered for a period of time until they are no longer there, but to permit them within the urban boundaries in new developments, I think that should be a clause in every new subdivision that comes on board, that no keeping of fowl or some places I've seen goats and some of them pheasants and all kinds of different animals kept in the rear yard, which are fine for the individual, but certainly have an impact on the neighborhood. And Councillor Fisher mentioned a few weeks ago about coyotes, and everybody kind of snickered and laughed and thought that was kind of ridiculous to bring up at a council meeting. Well, I can suggest to you, if you want to live in Niagara on the Lake, you can't even let your dog out unless you're standing beside them, with the number of coyotes down there. And if it's somebody thinks it's a provincial or some other authority, the Ministry of Natural Resources, if some child gets bit by a coyote or something happens to a human with respect to that, where are they going to be the first time? They're going to be at the podium here at the council meeting saying, what are you doing about it? So I suggest that some things that are brought up that may not be a local situation, we better take a strong look at. In fact, half of the discussions that take place at the AMO are provincial and federal matters that municipalities are trying to have an effect on. Anyway, I think this is a great opportunity to have another look at this and to see what kind of reaction, put an ad in the newspaper that the council is going to be considering this, certainly restrict them in all new subdivision developments coming on, and see what kind of a turnout we get at the podium with respect to that, and see if we can't make sure that the urban boundaries are appropriate for residential development. And I think that's what, in fact, I'll make that motion after we've had the opportunity for some debate.
Councillor Wing?
I have to disagree with the councillor. I think we've been down this road already. I chaired the committee, and we had very exhaustive investigations and discussions with bylaw staff, the Humane Society staff, public meetings, and it just went on and on and on. And we really took a comprehensive look at this. And in the end, we came up with what I think turned out to be a very good compromise between the chicken fanciers and those who lived around them. And not everybody who had a neighbor keeping chickens had problems. There was only certain areas, and it related primarily to the roosters, the noise of them crowing, and we immediately banned roosters. There was one neighborhood in which the gentleman keeping chickens let them just wander at will through the neighborhood. They were getting hit on the roads, and it was problematic. And so we managed to address all the problems that were brought to us then, and they're the same as what's being raised right now. And we put a cap on the number of chickens, maximum of 10 per property. The chicken coops have to be maintained in accordance with good animal husbandry practices, and she'll keep all vermin out, so that's your rodents, your coyotes, and everything. The chickens have to be totally enclosed, and the vermin have to be kept out. Hygienic storage of and prompt removal of feces. The food supply must be protected against vermin. And of course, we put some rather heavy restrictions on in terms of how far the coops have to be located from neighboring properties. 25 feet from rear lot line and 15 feet from any side lot line. You can't even keep chickens in the urban area unless you have at least a 40-foot frontage. So right away, a lot of properties, especially in new subdivisions and some of the older areas of the city, are prohibited from keeping chickens because they just don't have enough frontage. So we've already addressed this. I can comment that I've been watching what's going on in other cities. I've been advising a couple of people up in Waterloo, and because of various concerns, there's the locavore food movement growing. You know, there's nothing more local than your own backyard. That's even closer than the 100-mile diet. And food security concerns. A lot of people are in other municipalities pushing to get the same sort of thing that we enjoy. You know, we've struck a balance between those who want to keep chickens and those who live nearby, and I think it's worked pretty good up till now. As staff noted in their comments, there's only 2 or 3 complaints a year. You know, I'd really hate to reopen this. I remember the council today thought I was absolutely nuts to take this on. This was something that, you know, we used to get complaints about, and everybody tried to sidestep it. And I said, well, I'll tackle it. And, you know, we've been down this road already. I don't think we need to go down it again. And the suggestion that 40-foot side yard setback be put in place, well, right away there are very few properties in the city that would then be allowed to have chickens at all. So I think what we've got in place works quite well.
Councillor Thompson.
Well, I spent 30 years in the health department, and part of my responsibilities early on was to go around to rear yards where animals were being kept. And I defy anybody to suggest that they can have a chicken coop with 10 chickens that is going to be satisfactory in a residential area. Some people may put up with it, but the amount of fecal material and mess that's made, the odor, particularly in the hot summer, et cetera, is certainly not pleasant. And, you know, we did it how many years ago? And it was a difficult situation. I believe the atmosphere has changed since then, and I think we may find a few of them that we can grandfather, but certainly to stop any further development. But those are my comments and my feelings, and maybe Mrs. Zaddy can elaborate further, which I'd like to hear.
Councillor Maves?
No, I'm just agreeing with Councillor Thompson on this issue in that I don't think we should, if we're going to do a study on this or change anything, we shouldn't be restricted to chickens. I think there's an awful lot of other things going on in the city. Didn't you say last year somebody had 54 cats or something like that? So I think the whole thing, if you're going to do a study, it should take into consideration chickens and other types of animals as well. So that's just a comment I'd like to.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Councillor Fisher?
Here comes the farmer in me. So sorry. But I can tell you right now, being a farmer or growing up on the farm and having chickens, you can't keep them in a little coop. You got to have freedom to run. If they don't, they attack each other. It's a vicious-looking situation. They cannot be cooped unless they're individually penned. So I could put them all in a small surrounding. It doesn't work. Trust me, I've been there, done that.
Mrs. Zaddy, do you have another comment you'd like to make?
I'd just like to agree with her because there again, these chickens are attacking each other and fighting with each other. This neighbor has young children and they're kicking the cage and irritating the chickens. And there again, the rooster bylaw, well, he had a rooster, and I guess he wasn't aware about this rooster bylaw, and he kept it there till the health inspector went there. So that's not aware to the public. It wasn't aware to me, or else I wouldn't have brought this to the council. So there's a lot of issues. The smell, and there again, it's an open field. You're going to have a lot of other animals coming in, and that's not fair. I didn't pay the good amount of money I'm paying, the tax money I'm paying, to have a setting like that. And then it's an eyesore also. You put yourself in my position beside a chicken coop, and they do have, it's right beside my property. He has to move it. He's not even abiding by the bylaw. And when he does move it, it's right beside me. So I can't even have a barbecue out there without looking at his chickens. And there again, why isn't he putting a fence up? So who's going to enforce that bylaw? And then there again, the city has to pay money to enforce this man if he's going to be stubborn. That's money for the city to pay to bring him to court. So I'm quite aware about all these issues. And how do you maintain that?
Councillor Wing?
Are our staff, bylaw staff going out to enforce our bylaw then? It sounds like this comes down to violation of the bylaw.
Well, I know there was a correction on the rooster, if that's correct. Is that right, Mr. Clerk?
Yeah, through the chair, once it was made aware to staff that there was a rooster, they went out, the rooster was removed, and bylaw staff responds to complaints, and I know they have in this situation, and I know Mr. Castrilli is working with, I think he's talked to Ms. Zaddy, and the obviously the homeowner who has about the setbacks.
Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, I think it's worth another run at it. I'd like to see an ad put in the paper that we're going to discuss it. Anybody would like to comment on this issue, and through you to Mr. Hurlovich, is this something that we can do to restrict any new subdivision developments, that the people are aware that chickens being kept in the urban boundaries and a new residential development is can we control that?
Hurlovich?
Doesn't sound like a zoning matter, and maybe the clerk could respond.
I think we could probably amend the animal control bylaw to accommodate that. I think it's quite possible.
I would like it to be referred to a future meeting, an article in the paper. We hear submissions, and we also have a report back on the possibility of restricting it in new developments as they come on stream.
Motion by Councillor Thompson. Is there a seconder? Councillor Carrier? Is that your second?
I'll second the motion, Your Worship. And do we have to restrict it to new subdivisions? Can we not restrict it to new chicken coops? Like if you don't have one now,
sure, yeah.
Even if it's another subdivision?
Okay. The clerk wishes to make another comment. Mr.
Yeah, and I think what Councillor Thompson's getting at is feasible. I mean, number one, we would Under the animal control bylaw, when we first brought it in back in 2002, with the section regarding exotic animals, people were supposed to come in and register whether they had exotic animals, and then basically they could keep them till they died. We didn't do a very good job at that time publicizing that provision, but I think we're a little more astute on these things now, 5 years or 6 years down the road. So I think what Councillor Thompson's clearly getting at is that anybody who currently has a chicken coop would come in and register. They'd have to register by a certain time, and then hopefully once their chickens die off or they don't replace them or they move, it ceases to be. So I think there's ways we can deal with that.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor, members of council. We'll call the vote. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? 1 opposed. Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Edidei. Move on. If I can ask the clerk if there's any additional items for council's consideration.
No further items.
Okay. Move on to property matters. I'm going to ask if there's anyone present that has an interest in some land, a surplus laneway between Broughton and Hickson Avenues, file number 2008-228. Obviously, there's no one here in the chambers, so we'll move ahead with the request to declare the area of the laneway between Broughton and Hickson Avenues as surplus land. Moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Mays. Any discussion? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. We'll ask for ratification if we can. Mr. Clerk?
Actually, I'm going to do 2 ratifications, the Human Resources Committee, and we forgot to list the in-camera, but there's some overlap on that. With regard to the Human Resources Committee, they recommend that based on the results of a request for proposal for a search firm helping fill the vacancy of the Chief Administrative Officer, that the following 3 firms be selected for an interview: Roy and Berntson, Feldman Daxon, and Organizational Consulting Limited. And secondly, the HR committee recommends to council, as per their job descriptions in place, that the executive directors be appointed to act on a monthly basis upon the departure of the current CAO, and that the current CAO determine the rotation of these individuals.
Okay. We have a motion to accept, moved by Councillor Fisher, seconded by Councillor Pietrangelo. Discussion as well?
Yeah, Your Worship, I just wanted to redeclare a conflict on OPA 66 as was previously.
I'm sorry. So you can't second the motion then, okay, if that's all right?
Hold on, it's the Human Resources Committee.
Okay, so I can, well, a member of the committee, Councillor Carrier, fine, thank you. All right, so we have the motion presented and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay, for the in-camera, 2 items, and one's related to OMB decision on OPA 66. And the recommendation is that in the event the Council of the Regional Municipality of Niagara chooses to proceed with an appeal on the order of the Ontario Municipal Board issued August 20th, 2008 on the OMB file related to the OPA 66, the city solicitor is instructed to take whatever steps are required to support the region of Niagara in that appeal. And the second motion is actually the same motion from the Human Resources Committee, and that's regarding the that the executive directors be appointed to act on a monthly basis upon departure of the current CAO.
Ratification in camera, moved by Councillor Carrier, seconded by Councillor Ioannoni. Any further comments or discussion? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. I'm sorry, opposed? Is there opposition? We have 1. Okay, motion's carried. Thank you. Ratification of Corporate Services Committee. I'm calling on Councillor Pietrangelo, Chair.
Your Worship, 4 items from tonight's meeting. Report F 2008-37 dealing with the 2007 consolidated financial statements. The recommendation was that the report be received for information. Report F 2008-39 dealing with the Investing in Ontario Act. There was an update, and it was recommended that Council refers the report to our 2009 budget deliberations. Report F 2008-41 dealing with the Lundy's Lane Battlefield Legacy Project. Recommended that Council approve the refunding request for the engagement of architects to develop a set of tender-ready construction drawings for the Niagara Falls Board and Museum Lundy's Lane Battlefield Legacy Project. And secondly, Your Worship, that the final approval of the projects be deferred until the financial commitment of the other stakeholders is finalized. And under new business, it was recommended that a staff report come back to Council dealing with Council remuneration. And I would so move.
Moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Ioannoni. Any further comments or questions? Having seen none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Call on ratification of Community Services Committee actions. Councillor Ioannoni as chair.
Thank you. Staff must think I'm getting a lot younger because the font got a lot smaller. Might I say I want Victor's font next time? I can't see this. The following items are to be ratified from tonight's meeting of the Community Services Committee. The minutes of September 22nd, 2008 meeting be approved. Under reports, MW 2008-55, Waitman Bridge Structural Rehabilitation Status Report, that the Council approve the proposed staging of construction on the Waitman Bridge, allowing it to stay open to 2 lanes of traffic and 1 sidewalk for pedestrians for reasons as outlined in this report. 2, that Council approve the postponement of the construction of the proposed bridge rehabilitation from 2009-2010. That Council authorize the engagement of Rankin Construction, Inc. to undertake the proposed minor remedial repair works. MW 2008-59, the Waitman Bridge Water Main Relocation Status Report. 1, that Council approve the implementation of the recommended preferred alternative from the consultant RV Anderson Associates Limited, investigating the following municipal Class EA process for the replacement relocation of the existing water mains on the Waitman Bridge. 2, that Council approve the proposed scheduling and phasing of the construction of the recommended new water main loop into Chippewa along Stanley Avenue and Lions Creek Road as outlined in this report. MW 2008-61, Building Canada Fund, that the City submit the Museum Legacy Project for the Building Canada Fund at the resolution appeared tonight be approved. 2008-31, the Centennial Water Molecule update, that staff look into the possibility of moving the Centennial Water Molecule back to City Hall. TS 2008-05, Portage Road between Churches Lane and Mount Road traffic calming follow-up review, that this report be received for the information of the committee. TS 2008-21, Woodbine Street traffic calming review, that the following report be received for the information of the committee. CAO 2008-5, People Mover project update, that the city continue to dedicate the necessary resources to meet the June 30th, 2009 Canada Infrastructure Fund deadline for the People Mover project. And under new business, that the City of Niagara Falls support the Town of Niagara-on-the-Lake in making an application to the Building Canada Fund for the infrastructure renewal at the Niagara District Airport, and that's as long as my arm can go, so it needs to be bigger next time. I so move.
Moved by Councillor Ioannoni, seconded by Councillor Diodati. Any comments or questions? Having seen none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Move on to the consent agenda. Pleasure of Council. Move, Councillor Ioannoni, moving in whole.
Yes, and I just want to make sure that I was reported again as being opposed to the Waitman Bridge deferral.
Okay, so noted. Okay. And your second, the consent agenda? Okay. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Councillor Thompson, got a conflict?
Yes.
Noted on item PD 2008-87. So we'll proceed on. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll have a resolution before us now that therefore it be resolved that the Niagara Falls City Council supports the Niagara Falls Board of Museums Lundy's Lane Battlefield Legacy Project as the project most worthy of submission for the first intake of the community's component agreement of the Building Canada Fund. Moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Diodati. Any further questions or comments? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Mr. Clerk, are there any additional bylaws or amendments to the bylaws for Council's consideration? No, Your Worship. Okay, then can I have a motion to introduce the bylaws? The bylaws be given a first reading. Moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Diodati. You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Mr. Clerk? Oh, sorry?
I just wanted to note my opposition to bylaw 2008-173 regarding OPA number 86.
Okay, so noted again. Okay, Mr. Clerk.
Actually, you probably also the next one because they're both related. Okay.
So noted.
Bylaws 2008-168 to 2008-176 read a first time.
Thank you. I have a motion to have the bylaws given a second and third reading. Moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Diodati. Once again, Council's heard the motion. Any further questions or comments? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Bylaws 2008-168 to 2008-176 read a second and third time and passed.
Thank you. Any new business this evening? Motion to adjourn by Councillor Ioannoni, seconded by Councillor Pietrangelo. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you.
No, ask them.